Hi everyone, thanks so much for watching my presentation. I'm going to be talking about my work that I did in the Mueller Lab this summer as part of the BTI-RU program. And my name is Nistar, and I worked on auditing database tables in Breedbase. So I'll give a brief introduction about the Mueller Lab and their work in the field of bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is a field which is a synthesis of computer science and genetics in order to make new breakthroughs in biology. And the Mueller Lab has a variety of bioinformatics projects. One of them is Breedbase, which is a website and database ecosystem that's used in crop breeding programs. So I'll give a brief overview of what I'll be talking about. I'll talk a little bit more about Breedbase, and then I'll talk about my contribution to Breedbase, which was the addition of an audit table feature. I'll talk about what audit tables are and why they're important. I'll talk about how I designed and implemented this feature, and I'll do a short demo, and then I'll wrap up with conclusions. So a little bit more about Breedbase. Like I said before, it's an integrated website and database ecosystem that crop breeders use in their research, especially in developing research on crops such as cassava, yams, sweet potatoes, bananas, other staple crops that are important in tropical regions, especially in West Africa, and that's led to a couple of international partnerships that the Mueller Lab has with different institutions that also study these crops. And audit tables are an important feature in all relational database systems such as Breedbase. An audit table is basically a way of tracking and recording changes that were made to a database. So in Breedbase, there's a lot of activity happening, a lot of data coming in of new accessions and trials and crosses and pedigree charts and all different tables containing data, and there are tons of changes made to those data all the time. And so when you're having all this activity in Breedbase, it's really important to have a record and a way to track these changes so that you can have good data management, and also so that in the event of any mistakes, the users of Breedbase can easily access these errors and then fix them in an efficient way. And just in general, when you're having a lot of activity in a database, it's a good practice to have these audit tables available. And so this is what I worked on. I added a feature in Breedbase that allows authorized users to access these audit tables. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about how I designed this feature and how I implemented it. It was in two main steps. The first one was to create these audit tables in the database by running a database patch and then displaying them on the website that the users actually interacted with. And I'll go into a bit more detail of how I did this. It involved a couple of different languages and packages. HTML, JavaScript, and jQuery all had to do with what the users were interacting with in the website. So all the buttons, the drop-down menu, different selections they can make, how everything looked, the functionality of it, and then displaying the data in a visually pleasing format all had to do with the website. And then on the database side, this was done, like I said before, in a database patch that's written in SQL, and that contained code that created these tables and then also trigger functions that inserted new rows into the audit tables every time a change was made to the corresponding database table. And then to go between the database and then the user interface was a controller that was written in Perl, and the Perl kind of managed these interactions between the database and the website. It called these queries that would pull information from the database and then display it on the website so that the user could use these data to inform their crop breeding projects. Now I'm going to do a short demo of using this audit feature that I created. Here I'm logging into CassavaBase, which is an instance of Breedbase. I'm going to be uploading some new accessions, just some demo accessions. It's in this Excel file you can see. So I'm adding these two new accessions into the database, and this will be changes to the stock table. And since we're changing a database table, then the corresponding audit table should also have some updates. And so we're going to take a look at that. You can see in this dedicated audit page, there's a selection of all different audit tables that you can make. Here I'm going to view the stock audit table because I inserted things into the stock database table. And here you can see the two insertions I made. In the string, in the after column, you can see this, the name, they were the same names of the accessions that you saw before in the Excel file. And here I'm going to a specific accession, to the demo accession 1 detail page, and then we'll be able to make a change. Here I'm going to be just adding an edit to the description, and this is another change to the stock database table, and again it should appear in the audit table, which we'll see here. So I'm going to be scrolling to the audit table section in this specific accessions page. And here you can see this is the update that I just made. The before string that was pulled from the stock table, and the after string contains the new description. And you can do the same thing for a trial. Here I'm going to a trial that was already created. I'm going to be doing something similar, just changing the description, but really this is a model for any kind of update. You know, if you change the name or the date or any of the other information tied to this trial, it will make a change in the project database table, because that's the table that holds all the trials. And then accordingly, the project audit table will have these changes reflected. And you can see I inserted some punctuation. Now I'm going to go back to the general audit table page, where you can select any kind of audit table you want to see. These are all audit tables for database tables that already existed in Breedbase, and now they have corresponding audit tables. Here I'm selecting the list audit table as an example, just making it a little bit zoomed out. And this list audit table is showing all the updates and insertions that were made to the list database table. Again, here's the SP token audit table, and you can see there's like almost 2,000 entries in this. Not all of these changes were things that I did like explicitly. Like SP token has to do with when a user logs into the database, and then that will generate like a bunch of changes that were made to that will generate a bunch of changes to the SP token table, and then those changes will then be reflected in the audit table, as you can see here. So I'll summarize. I talked a bit about Breedbase in general. It's a project of the Mueller Lab, a database and a website to support crop breeding projects. And I added an audit table feature, which improves functionality, and it allows users to track and record their changes that they made to different database tables over the course of the research. And I did this by first running a database patch that creates the audit tables on the database end, and then also making this information available to the users through the website. So my project has both small scale and broader impacts. The main one is that now obviously curators in Breedbase will be able to see the changes that were made to all these database tables, and this will hopefully lead to improved breeding programs, better data management practices. Because a lot of the breeding programs that use Breedbase have to do with staple crops, this can be important in food security. Like I said before, crops like cassava are very important in tropical regions of the world. And just in general, in genomics, it's important to have efficient software systems and good database management practices, and audit tables are an important part of that. So this project is still in development. There are some things that still need to be worked on. One of them is that you might have noticed in the audit tables there was a column called logged in user that was blank. This is something that's still being worked on. It has to do with all the different types of database connections that happen. There's not one type of way that the website connects to the database. It happens in many different locations and in different functions, and that's been a bit difficult to consistently access the user ID, so that's something that will still be worked on and hopefully accomplished. And another thing that could really be improved is insertion of an undo button. Part of the whole reason we want audit tables is if there was a mistake, like for example, if someone went and deleted a whole bunch of accessions that they didn't mean to, it would be really helpful to just have an undo button right there in the audit table so that they'd be able to fix the error without needing to go back to wherever they had deleted these accessions. But the undo button sort of relies on consistent access to the user ID, and that is also something we still need to work on. And so once we get that figured out, then the undo button will be able to be implemented. Another thing is detail pages. I inserted audit table sections into the stock and to the trial detail pages, but there is tons of other detail pages in Breedbase. Like here's the genotyping data project detail page. That one doesn't have an audit table yet, but it could be inserted into the page, and that could really improve the functionality of any projects involving these other types of projects. And lastly, Breedbase is always getting new suggestions. We get a lot of feedback from the curators, the breeders, the people who are actively using Breedbase in their research. And because there's constant suggestions being made, as these users will start to use the audit tables, I'm sure there's going to be more suggestions of ways that we can improve the audit tables, and those will definitely be taken into consideration. That's all. Thank you so much for watching. I'd like to thank the Mueller Lab and especially my mentors, Adrian Powell and Lucas Mueller, for their really excellent mentorship and all the mentorship I received at BTI. And to you, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.